Hey there, this is 1-8, which has to do with body cavities. Cavities are like caves. They hold organs inside of your body. And as you can see from the picture here, that there are two main types of body cavities, the yellow ones and the red ones. Of course, they're not yellow and red inside of your body, so what's the difference between them? The yellow ones are your dorsal body cavity. Dorsal means towards your back. So these are all the guys that are on the dorsal side. And your dorsal body cavity is made up of two smaller cavities, your cranial cavity, which holds your brain and all the associated structures with it, and your vertebral cavity, which contains your spinal cord, and then it branches off into a whole bunch of nerves from there, but those leave the cavity. So from the front side, if you were to look, you would be able to see all of your cranial cavity and just a portion of the vertebral cavity. Now the rest of it, the ventral body cavity, is made up of two chunks, the thoracic and abdominopelvic. And the reason why it's in two chunks is because you have a diaphragm that separates them into two. So the upper half is the thoracic, because this is your thorax, and the lower half is your abdominopelvic, because it's made of your abdomen and your pelvic area. So let's take a look first at the thoracic area. From the side, the thoracic cavity contains all your major organs above your diaphragm, your heart, your lungs, your trachea, your esophagus, and so on. From the side, it doesn't look like much. It just looks like where your lungs go. But if we flip you around, you can see it's actually made up of several smaller cavities. So, let's throw the diaphragm back in there. So your thoracic cavity is made out of the pleural cavities. Plural, not as more than one, but plural as in lungs. So anytime you see that word pleura, that means lungs. So pleuritis, inflammation of the lungs, pleural cavity, lung cavity, and so on. Then we have this one right here, which, as you can imagine, your heart goes in there. That is called the pericardial. Peri means around, not Perry the platypus, and cardia means heart. So pericardial just means around your heart. Then we have this weird funky one right here where your esophagus and your trachea go in, and that is called your mediastinum. Sometimes people say mediastinum, but most doctors I hear say mediastinum. Hey, look, my virus protection is all good. So all of these categories, the pleural, the pericardial, and the mediastinum, all make up the thoracic cavity. Now if we go down below the diaphragm, we have your abdominopelvic cavity. And that one's pretty easy to remember because it's made up of your abdominal cavity, which is where your stomach and your large intestine and your small intestines are, and your pelvic cavity, which contains your bladder, all your reproductive organs, and the last little bit of your digestive system, the rectum. And so usually they kind of categorize these two together because there's not a barrier. There's no membrane, there's no muscle that separates these two. It's just more of a generalized location of where the two different ones are. Okay? So, dorsal and ventral. So let's see. Cavities. So we've got dorsal and ventral. Dorsal can be split into cranial and vertebral. Then the ventral can be split into thoracic and abdominopelvic. Now thoracic can be split into pleural and mediastinal and, come on, where's my, I lost my arrow. Hello? Oh. Uh-oh. These are called glitches. Get used to them. I don't know what happened. Something happened. I have the blue circle of death. Wait. Anyway, I'm just going to pretend you're going to fill in the rest. So the thoracic is split into the pleural, the mediastinum, there it is, and the pericardial, and the abdominopelvic is split into the abdominal and the pelvic. So this is kind of a simplified flow chart. You might want to fill it in with the real words, but that's kind of a nice easy way for you to see how all the cavities are organized. Now, in each of these cavities you have the guts, otherwise known as your viscera. I don't know if you've ever played any video games where the bad guy gets eviscerated. Well, that means that all of his viscera go out, EX means away from the body. So I don't know why I just thought of that. So the viscera just means all your guts and everything inside your body. Now, the fact that they're in there, they need to be protected from rubbing against other stuff. So you got your diaphragm right here, which it can rub up against. And you got all the other organs, which they can rub up against. And so your body needs a way to protect it. And so your body has created these things called serosa. Serosa, if it ends in an A, that means it's singular. If it ends in AE, it's plural. So if you ever see the word serosae, that just means it's serosas, plural. That's all. Latin. You'll get used to it. So your serosa are these thin double-layered membranes that line your body cavity walls and organs. And an easy way to think of them is like your serosa is like a water balloon. And if you put your fist into this water balloon, then what ends up happening is that the outside part of the balloon gets tucked to the inside, like this. And so here's your two layers. There's the outer layer and there's the inner layer. So that's the double layer part. It all came from one balloon, but if you punch it in, now it becomes a two-layered structure. Now the outer layer that's around the whole outer side, and it typically remains smooth, is called the parietal serosa. Parietal means around the outside. So these are the ones that are found on the outside of the abdominal pelvic cavity, on the outside of the thoracic cavity. Then we have the visceral layer. And so pretend that this is your heart, this would be the visceral layer right here. And even though it's still technically part of the outside of the balloon, because it got pushed in, now it's on the inside. And so just remember viscera, guts, organs. So visceral means covers those guts and organs. And then in between, there's something equivalent to WD-40. It's a lubricating fluid that prevents friction and rubbing of the two membranes against each other. And we call that serous fluid because it's produced by the serosa. So serosa makes serous fluid to lubricate the visceral and the parietal serosa. Now the word serosa is going to be replaced with other things depending on where the serosa is. So if this is your heart, this becomes your visceral pericardium. Remember, pericardium around the heart. And this will be your parietal pericardium. So the word serosa gets replaced with the cavity that it's in. So there's parietal pleura and then visceral pleura. There is, what else? You could do, we did heart, lungs. The abdominal cavity is your peritoneum. So there's parietal peritoneum and visceral peritoneum. So this will take some getting used to, don't worry. We'll have more practice. So here's your heart. As you can see, there's the inner layer. There's your visceral see now I'm thinking of all these other words. The visceral pericardium because it's around the heart, and this is your parietal pericardium. And then you have serous fluid in between. Here's for the lungs. This outer layer, which is smooth and continuous, is your parietal pleura because it's on your pleural cavity. And then this one, which lines the outside of the lungs, is your visceral pleura. So the visceral and parietal always stays the same. It's this word changes depending on which organ it's on or which cavity it's lining. Alright, and here's just a little bit more, a few more pictures to describe it. So here's all your guts and everything on the inside. So around the outside, that is your parietal peritoneum. Parietal on the outside, peritoneum refers to your abdominal pelvic cavity. Now, if you notice, it kind of comes back around and lines the liver. And so this is your visceral peritoneum because it touches the organs. Here's a better picture because I like it. It's color-coded. You can see the red on the outside, parietal. And then we have the blue on the inside, visceral. Touches the organ, visceral. Doesn't touch the organ, parietal. Okay? And then this is just the empty cavity that's filled with serous fluid, so that way your guts and organs don't rub against each other when you're out for a jog. Alright, thank you very much, and if you have any questions, let me know tomorrow. Bye-bye.